So I got to explore all that, go to
Yeah.
Hollywood and everything. I was like, man, this is really cool. I get to really thrive in life a little bit, you know, see things that I always wanted to see. Travel, company took care of all of it. And then, ironic part, this is how I met Luke Bohach. His wife was our sponsored athlete.
Really?
Yeah, Deborah.
Wow.
She was actually brought on board because we loved how she looked. We loved how she had a presence in the bodybuilding community, and we brought her on board. And that's how I got to know Luke.
Wow.
And Luke essentially, you know, told me about FFL.
Yeah. And Luke was in Virginia at this time.
Luke was in Virginia at the time.
How close did you guys live together? Or
maybe an hour and a half apart.
Okay.
Yeah, not far at all.
Got it.
But what was also cool was, so Shauna, my girlfriend, she was best friends with Deborah.
Okay.
And we got to know each other more on a personal level through that relationship first.
Yeah.
Before business. And then one day, Luke just sends me a text message. First, it was a text message of him at a stage talking in front of a bunch of people. I'm like, did you send this to the right person? And then he sent me a leaderboard number.
Yeah.
Now, back then, we had leaderboard numbers that showed numbers, like, with everything. And I'm like, no, there's
Did you know anything about what he was doing at the time?
None.
No.
I always questioned what he was doing because Deborah didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. She was always competing. She was always prepping for shows or doing something around fitness. I'm like, how can they afford to do things like this?
Yeah.
And I always questioned, but I never asked. I was like, none of my business, right? And then essentially he sent me the leaderboard numbers. And I was like, what is this? He goes, got you intrigued, right? And I was like, yeah, but what? Like, I'm confused. I was perfectly content with the way I was living my life.
Yeah.
Single guy. I was around bodybuilding. I was always doing this. I was doing that. He goes, let's talk one day. So we drove down an hour to meet with him and his wife, Deborah, and for dinner. And he pulled up the old CRM.
Yeah.
The old with the blue logos all over.
Okay.
I remember that one.
Yeah,
yep. And he pulls up a lead.
He goes, there's probably no heat map at that point.
No, nothing. This was pre-heat map. It was just uploaded. You get an image of the document.
List and some leads.
Dude, like some of you guys would have no idea what this was like. We'll talk about that too. And what happened was he pulls up a lead. He goes, so what we do, we call these people. These are people that are requesting our help.
Yeah.
I was like, for what? Life insurance, mortgage protection, final expense. I was like, so what do you do? He goes, I call them. This is what I tell them. Ran me through a whole phone script, like at the dinner table. He goes, you think you can do this? I was like, yeah. He goes, go get your license. He sent me the course. And it wasn't like, what we had what's the other course?
Exam FX at the time.
Exam FX at the time, yeah. We had that. And I was like, okay. So I studied, did the course in like 10 days, went and took my license, failed it because I didn't study. I just like flew right through it. I was like, I can't, like I said earlier, I can't read.
Yeah.
Like not that I can't read physically, but I just cannot stand reading and reading through material. And then, so I redid it again, went back second time, failed it again. I was like, all right, I can do this. So I went again, went the third time, failed it again by 1%. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Because I didn't study. I was just like trying to study the answers.
Yeah.
So in Virginia, you have to wait for 30 days to retake it.
Oh, damn.
I'm like, well, I guess I can prepare a little bit longer and not feel
So now
pressure.
we're like 90 days in.
Now we're like 90 days in, right? And I'm like, okay. Well, not really. We're probably about maybe 45 days in. Because I got the course in November, in October, tried to get it in November, and I waited like November. And then the day before Christmas, 2017, I passed.
Nice.
Fourth go around.
Yeah.
I passed with so much excitement, Mike. I tried to text Luke. I dropped the phone and like shattered. I was like, oh, this sucks. Well, it didn't shatter all the way. It still works, so that's okay. Did the whole thing, and then January 1st, I got appointed. I got everything, and everything was like, cool.
This is January of 18.
18, yep. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I didn't do anything with it.
No.
I just sat on it for a couple months, almost 2 months.
Why'd you sit on it?
I didn't believe in the system.
Yeah.
I didn't believe what we had because it was so unreal. I'm like, this can't be real.
So you didn't even attempt. You didn't make any
No,
calls yet, nothing.
because I was involved in other MLM businesses before, trying to like, this is
Got it.
like this is another MLM. One of those MLM, like I don't. It's not me.
Yeah.
But then what happened is when it was convention time.
Yeah.
And
why'd you go to convention if you didn't believe?
So Luke told me straight out, if you don't go, you can't afford to miss. If you don't go, you're gonna regret it.
Yeah.
And at this time, my leased vehicle I had was repossessed.
Okay.
2 weeks prior to that. I'm like, I have no money. I have $400-500 maybe at the very most of money to last me for another 10 days before I get paid again.
What happened with the selling the supplements and whatnot?
I was still doing it, but it was already coming apart.
Got it.
The business wasn't blown. It was a smaller company. It was trying to compete in a big industry world. It just wasn't making it.
Yeah.
It was tough because everybody wanted to be hyped up with the high marketing. Like Redcon 1, for example, you know, those guys are crushing. They just released their brand that year.
Yeah.
They were blowing it up. Like they were all over the country. It was hard to compete with that because everybody wanted that.
They just weren't big enough to compete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what to do. I was like, I can't go to a convention. I'm broke.
Yeah.
So what happened was my car was repoed. My dad let me use his car for a little bit to try to get back on my feet. A week later, I totaled it. I got in an accident. And I was like, is there anything else that God wants to strike upon me that I can't get up from?
Right.
But all I did was communicate and, you know, just talk to Luke, talk to my family, and, like, just go do this. So I was like, well, how do I get to Dallas? Well, write a policy on your girlfriend. She was like, well, I could use some life coverage. So I wrote it in Americo.
Yeah.
Because I think I only had Americo, Mutual, and
That's the first policy you wrote?
First policy ever.
Yeah.
And I think I had Global Atlantic, and that was it back then. I didn't have any carrier. I had 3 carriers.
Yeah.
I wrote Americo. So I book a flight. I'm flying. I'm headed out in a few days. And Luke's like, don't worry about the hotel. There's a new guy that I recruited. He's going to split it with you. I was like, awesome. Well, that guy bails.
Yeah.
And that hotel at the venue where we're at in Dallas was like, it wasn't cheap at that. It was like maybe
this would have been
the Hilton,
right?
Yeah.
Hilton Anatole.
Hilton Anatole. It was like $300, $400 a night. I was like, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
I can't afford that. So I'm flying. I took off from Charlottesville, Virginia to Atlanta, waiting for my layover. And Atlanta's like the biggest airport in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you have to hop on a train to get to the next terminal.
Oh, yeah. If you miss your terminal, you're screwed.
You're
too.
screwed.
You have another 20 minutes before you get back there.
I didn't know that, Mike. I was in anxiety. Like, I'm sitting there, and I'm pacing to the next terminal.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my phone, looking at that bank account number. And I'm pouring in sweat because I'm running literally to the next terminal.
Yeah.
I get there to the gate, and I'm still waiting for my flight, and I'm like looking at rental cars. I'm like, I'm driving back home. I'm getting out of this airport. I'm driving back home. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I called Luke. He goes, it's up to you what you want to do. I told you can't miss this opportunity. You're halfway there. I'm like, all right, let me call my dad. Because my dad's always supported me for everything. Yeah. He goes, you're halfway there. Like, you're going to be great. Just go. And Shauna, my girlfriend, she goes, I've been to many of those conventions. They're, like, empowering. Go.
Yeah.
And she wanted to take back her Tiffany necklace I got her for Valentine's Day to help me pay for the trip. I was like, you're not giving that back. You're not giving that back. So I went, showed up on Friday. And mind you, the room I stayed in, oh, my God. It was in Fort Worth. I had enough to rent a car. It was like $50 per night, per day. I found a hotel. It was like $60 a night. 1 star.
Yep.
Dude. It literally was falling apart.
Yeah.
And I didn't trust leaving my small little suitcase with like a pair of shorts and some clothes in there to the point where I packed it up every morning and left it in the car. I didn't trust it leaving there. And then I drove to Hilton Anatole, and I was there at 6:30 in the morning. Nobody was there.
Why were you there at 6:30?
That's what he told me to do. He goes, be there early. I was excited. I was like, let me get me out of this room. I'm going down there.
Yeah.
And I hung out, and then some, agents showed up, and they were booking appointments. And I called Luke. I was like, hey, what do I do? He goes, we're arriving late because we had an emergency, so we're going to be a day late. So you have to bear with me there, but find somebody you can sit with and listen to them dial.
Yeah.
Listen to Chantel. She was on the phone. I was like, I can't do what she's doing. This is aggressive.
Yeah.
And then Brian Mendenhall was there. He's like, you better get on the phone right now. Tell him you're showing up. I'm like, okay, this is not what I want. This is out of my element. Like, I can't be that guy because I wasn't used to that. And finally, Shawn Mike walked in, and I shook his hand. I was like, that's the boss. Respect him. And then the event started, and I was listening, and I was intrigued. And then we had those breakout sessions, which phenomenal. I'm glad we're bringing those back. I think they're going to be awesome. And we went to the breakout sessions, and as we went back to the venue, I get closer and closer and closer to the front. And I was like, man, this is really cool. Like, these are actually people like you and I just processing stuff. I'm like, I can do this. I started becoming a believer because I saw it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just word of mouth. It was actually seeing.
Because up until this point, all you've had was, I mean, you met Luke, you knew his perspective.
Yes.
You've, saw the company online and whatnot. I'm assuming maybe some calls, but you've not really been in it yet. You've not met the rest of the team. If you will.
And we didn't have videos back then.
Right.
We had conference calls.
Yeah.
Freeconferencecall.com, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
We had those, and then that was it. And then we had the Monday morning wake-up calls. That was it. We didn't have much.
No. Even our podcast at the time was we would just take a tape recorder.
Yeah.
Well, not tape recorder, but a little recorder, sit it down, we'd talk, no video, no nothing.
Nothing.
We'd just put the audio out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was it. And then when you see it, it's like, man, this is unbelievable. It was so empowering to see people winning at a high level.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, man, these are some, like, unrealistic numbers. I've never done this.
Yeah.
But the second day, Saturday, which is the last day, you guys came out of the back with briefcases in your hand.
Oh, yeah, giving out the bonuses.
Bonuses, and I'm like, okay, now you have my attention. What is this about? Let's go. I'm ready. And I looked at it, and we didn't have leads available at the time either. That was like the worst time to get as far as leads were coming. And Luke had actually handed me some unprocessed leads from 6 months, maybe a year, 2 years at the very most.
Yeah.
And I looked at him, and I was like, you know those leads you gave me? I'm going to work the living out of them.
So you already had them.
I had them.
You just never.
I never did anything.
Yeah.
I called once or twice. People hung up like, "Don't call me." I'm like, "This sucks." I was one of those guys.
Yeah.
So what did I do? I got the leads. I didn't call any of them. I door knocked them all.
When you got back.
When I got back,
Yeah.
2 weeks later, I quit my job.
Okay.
I was like, I had enough, and I was already clashing with my old bosses.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I'm done.
Wow.
Never looked back.